The big third weekend of recruiting is finally upon us, and it's coming up on June 18th. A majority of Texas's big targets will be on campus for official visits. Let's get caught up on the guys now that things are becoming more real. Justin Wells of Inside Texas stops by to preview all the recruits coming for the big event. Make sure to go subscribe to Inside Texas so you can get this kind of info all year round. Justin has been doing insane coverage of these events with recruit photos, pictures, and arrival updates. Plus, we recap all the 22s that visited this previous week, like number 1 linebacker Harold Perkins and our recent commit Anthony Jones, as well as O-line targets. Justin has all their reactions to their visits. And don't forget, this video is sponsored by Last Stand Hats. Use promo code TexasHomer, all caps, for 10% off your hat purchase at laststandhats.com. Let's get the word on Maalik Murphy, Jaydon Blue, Evan Stewart, Denver Harris, and many more. As always, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so I can keep bringing you bigger and better Texas Longhorns content. And without further ado, let's get into it. Justin, thanks for stopping by. I always learn a lot. Can you let the fans know who you are for the ones that don't?
I'm Justin Wells with Inside Texas. I am here today with my main man, Texas Homer, and we are going to talk about this recruiting weekend at the University of Texas for June 18th through the 20th. Probably the biggest recruiting weekend so far coming up in the last couple of years. Tons of commits, tons of top targets. We got a lot to cover, so let's go.
All right, man. Yeah, let's get it going. We have our quarterback commit, Maalik Murphy, coming to campus. Is he excited about being able to come back to Austin?
Maalik Murphy is coming home. He gets to come back after visiting Texas during the spring game, signing probably 100 autographs, taking 200 pictures in the stands. Maalik Murphy was the consummate Texas commit. He bent over backwards to do all the nice things and say all the right things. Malik's such a good kid, such a big kid, big heart. He's coming back. He's ready. Jordan Hudson, former Oklahoma commit, decommitted yesterday, and he was on him just like that. That's Maalik Murphy. He is the bell cow recruit for this class. He wants to bring all the guys together. And a lot of times you want your quarterback to be the leader of the class. You want him to be able to do that. And with technology, he's able to do that from his house in California. Malik's coming back. He's ready to see everybody. He's ready to mingle with each other. I guarantee you he's ready to put on that jersey and take those pictures. He's yet to see himself in burnt orange, and I know he really wants to do that. Malik's a leader. A lot of guys he'll galvanize a program. A lot of kids will rally around him. He's got a lot of skill. He's got a lot of talent, and he's got a long way to go before he's ready to be a productive quarterback in a football game. But he's got the standard. He's got everything down. He just has to build around and mold. And I believe that's what Coach Sarkisian and Coach Milby want to do. They want to mold him because he's got a big arm. He's accurate, and he's got leadership qualities. They just want to get him. We want to see him play more football games, less 7-on-7, more football games, more high impact situations. But Maalik Murphy, he's in it to win it, and he's all Texas.
And we have another commit in Jaden Blue visiting, and he made news recently by opting out of his senior season. So how are things with Jaden looking?
We're told that Jaden Blue will be on campus this weekend. The Klein Kane running back, he's one of the top tailbacks in the nation. Obviously, the news around him was opting out of his senior year. It's a bad look. There's a story to it, and I'm sure he'll tell it when he's ready to tell it. It's his business. It's his personal business. But at the end of the day, this isn't a sport that you can just stop playing and jump to another level and pick it up where you left off. Football's not designed that way. Your body needs that wear and tear to a certain extent. Your body needs that endurance, that weight training. And you can't get all of that with a trainer on the side. You can't get much of that. And you're losing one of the most vital parts of the football experience, being with your team, being with your guys, playing for each other, with each other, towards a common goal. I believe Texas is going to hang on to Jaden. I feel like Coach Sarkisian really likes Jaden. He likes his mother. He wants to help him. He wants to make sure he's on the right path. And so this weekend is going to tell us some stuff. It's going to tell us kind of not so much where he stands, but I can't wait to talk to him to get an idea of kind of where his mind's at and what he's doing moving forward. And if he's going to play a senior year, because as fans, you want to see him play a senior year. And I'm certain as coaches, the Texas guys want to see him play a senior year. You want to see that production on the field. He's got all the ability in the world, Homer. He's got it all. But at the end of the day, he really needs to play his senior year. And so we'll see how this story evolves more and more after this weekend.
And another running back target visiting is Travell Jones out of El Paso. Is it looking like he could potentially fill that number 2 running back spot?
Travell Jones, one of the top tailbacks in the state, about 5'10", 5'11", 180, 185 pounds. He's that quintessential inside guy that can go between the tackles, can also do some damage on the outside. Texas really likes this guy. There's not a lot of hype around him because he doesn't really do a lot of recruiting. He's got probably 20-plus offers. Alabama, I know Texas Tech, Minnesota, Oklahoma State, Florida, all interested. And so he's got some attention, but he's pretty fixated on Texas. And his only visit he has scheduled, he told me a couple days ago, was this coming weekend to Texas. He's eager to meet Stan Drayton. He loves Brandon Harris, the new recruiting coordinator. He thinks he's got a great personality. He loves that Coach Sark only talks to him about family and friends and life. He's yet to talk about football with him. Tavoris is one of those guys that fits this scheme. His ranking will be higher because of how he translates in this offense. He's ready. He's one of those guys that, people always ask, who's the next commit, or can this weekend get any commitments? I haven't heard anything from Jones that leads me to believe he's going to commit, but if he did, I wouldn't be surprised in the least. Texas has been the leader for quite some time now, and as long as the Horns are willing to take him, I think Travell Jones is a part of this class, and I think he adds another dimension to a ever-growing running back depth room.
And fans are super excited for O-line because we've been lacking NFL bodies there. And Kelvin Banks is visiting as the number 2 tackle in the nation. So what's the word on Kelvin's visit?
Bill Parcells used to say you build from the inside out, and that starts on the offensive and defensive lines. I think Sark and Kyle Flood think the same way when they talk about offensive line. That's why they have got in on the best in state for 2022. Kelvin Banks out of Summer Creek High School in Humble, Texas. He is your quintessential offensive tackle. Can play left tackle, play right tackle. Big frame kid, big wide body, big feet, good feet. Got a kick step. He's already getting into that mode of being a productive potential college offensive tackle. Texas is in a good spot here with Kelvin, and I believe they have been for a while. There's not a lot. You don't hear a lot around him because Kelvin's just not into the attention. If you talk to his family, they're very, very grounded, very level-headed. His mother, I believe, part of her job is teaching people how to do interviews. And so it makes sense because Kelvin's so well-spoken. He's such a polite, wonderful young man. He's ready to get to Austin. I know that he's ready to see Texas. He likes Texas. He doesn't tip his hand too often. But Kelvin Banks and Texas are in a really good spot. And I think this weekend is going to solidify that. Out of the 2 must-get offensive linemen in state for the class of 2022, it's Kelvin Banks and it's Devin Campbell out of Arlington Bowie. Devin Campbell's already been on campus 2, maybe 3 times in the springtime in an unofficial student trip capacity. He hasn't scheduled an official to Texas yet. He could pop in at any weekend on an unofficial. He tells us that he'd like to take that official during the season so he can catch a game, which is completely understandable. But those are the 2 guys you have to get for this class. And I think those are the 2 guys Texas has made the most priority with. Kelvin Banks and Devin Campbell. Banks coming in is going to be great. He's going to be joined by a ton of the Texas commitments that are already going to be on campus. He'll get to meet Malik Murphy. They've got a big group chat within the commitments, and I know that a lot of these guys want to meet each other for the first time. So I expect it to be fun. Kelvin Banks just took a trip to Oregon. Him and I actually spoke a few months ago about some of these trips, and he had mentioned taking one to Oregon. I had mentioned, going to an official visit to Oregon is an experience because those facilities are state of the art. And I've had players tell me it looks like a spaceship. Like everything is just out of this world. The fact that he went to Oregon, he enjoyed it. Now he's come back home. I think that tells us a little bit where Kelvin's at. I don't think he's a leave the state type of kid. I think he's a guy that could commit to Texas and live 2.5 hours from campus. His family can see most of his games. I love where Texas is with Kelvin Banks right now. They just have to stay the course because I believe they are the pace car.
Then we have an Austin Westlake kid and Connor Robertson. And I've heard Stanford's in the mix there. So what's Connor looking to do on his visit?
Connor Robertson, funny thing, fellow offensive line target Cole Hudson from Frisco, Texas, just took his official visit last weekend to Texas. Popped in the weekend before because his father pitched or played baseball at Arizona State. Arizona State was in the NCAA regionals at Ditch Falk, got to play Texas. So Texas, the NCAA seeding committee kind of helped them. They got to see Cole. Well, apparently after Cole had popped in on that unofficial weekend before last, Connor hits campus Monday morning. So that tells me there's interest there. That tells me he's paying attention. Connor's a very pragmatic young man. I enjoy talking to Connor because there's no BS with him. He doesn't have, he thinks it's a waste of time and energy. He's just going to shoot you straight. This is the way it is. And thank you for your time. Connor's a good kid. He's a great interior lineman. He could play center. He could play guard. I think he really maximizes that guard because he's got real punch to him. He's not from Texas originally, so there's not this emotional tie to the Longhorns. Now, his father, born and raised Longhorn, I believe he also attended Texas. There's some influence there. I almost feel like he lives too close. I almost feel like he's been in Austin. He can drive 10, 15 minutes to campus. I almost feel like that is a detriment. Like he wants to see other places. He wants to experience something outside the state. And that's not a knock. That's just his personality. That's my feeling. Stanford is definitely involved. And anytime Texas fans hear Stanford is involved on an offensive lineman or a tight end, they clinch up. There's some PTSD there for good reason. Northwestern, he took his official visit last weekend to Northwestern. A lot of kids mention academics being important, but few actually fulfill that. Connor Robertson's doing that. He's fulfilling that prophecy that academics matter, especially to his family and friends. I don't know where he stands with Texas, to be totally honest with you. He keeps a lot of things close to the vest. I don't think Hudson and Robertson are going to be in the same class. I think Texas prefers one over the other. Which one? Might be which one jumps in first. It's hard to tell. Robertson says he'd like to make a decision when he's through taking all of his visits. He'd like to have an announcement possibly by the end of the summer. At the same time, Cole Hudson is on a similar timeline. He'd like to make a decision after he's seen a few places, after his visits are over with, maybe in July. And so I think the first one to jump in is going to be the one Texas actually gets, if it's going to be Cole Hudson or it's going to be Connor Robertson. Cole took his official last weekend, was blown away. He absolutely loved it. Now it's Robertson's turn to have his official visit. You know, it's just down the road, so it's not going to be too much of a journey. I know he likes Texas. I know the family likes Texas, but I think right now, my gut tells me he's looking out west. And so I wouldn't be surprised if it was a Stanford or something of that sort in the Pac-12.
And wide receiver is also another key group for us. We have our commit in Armani Winfield getting his official visit. So how is Armani's recruitment progressing?
Armani Winfield's coming. He gets to come back home too. He's already made at least one trip unofficially this spring. He came up with a couple coaches and friends to kind of see everything. Armani was the first commitment. When Sarkisian was named, Armani committed, I believe, 2 hours before the press conference. That was Sark's first get. And Armani wanted to be that guy. He wanted to be that guy. The funny thing is there have been odd rumors over the last 6 months that Armani could be wavering, that he could be, looking at other schools or potentially decommitting. And what's funny is every time I chase those, I get inundated with constant family, friends, and coaches telling me that kid's all Texas. If you speak to his mother, I spoke to his mother a couple of weeks ago at one of Margin Hook's camps. His mother's all Texas. You speak to Armani's coaches, that's all he talks about is Texas. They talk to the point where he may be tired of the recruiting process. He's so locked into Texas, he's ready to finish his senior year and get enrolled. Armani's another one too. If you talk to his high school coaches, has really grown over the last year. He's gotten more mature. He understands his role as a leader at Louisville. Louisville is is coming back. They're keeping a lot of those kids in that area that they used to lose to Allen and to Lucas Lovejoy in those spots. Louisville's keeping those guys, and so there's a motivation to be a leader and set the standard there for Armani. He's a good one. He's one of those that, he's been on the radar for a couple of years. We've known him as a freshman. He's been a guy that's always been, in the conversation. Long, 6'3", 180, 190 pounds, can stretch the field, has a lot of upside, high ceiling. I like that Armani's going to be back. I like that he's going to be with these other receivers that are also joining him on the visit. And I like that he's going to get to meet up with Maalik Murphy and kind of solidify that relationship. So getting these commitments back on campus is always good, especially when they're mingled with all the other commits.
Then we have top receiver Evan Stewart, who committed and then decommitted earlier this year, but is still in the UT sphere. So how is Evan doing?
Evan Stewart is pound for pound the best receiver in the state. He might be pound for pound one of the best athletes in the state. If he's not dominating on the football field, he's doing it on track and field. Evan is special. He just has – to me, he's got a lot of Jalen Waddell to his game. Just a fast, quick, naturally – dude. Evan Stewart committed too soon. That's my opinion. I think Texas is squarely in it. I actually think Texas has the best shot at landing Stewart at the end of the day. I just think he committed a little too soon. I don't know if I've met a more savvy recruit in the process since I've done this for almost 10 years. Evan understands everything. He knows every post means something. When we talk about social media, I think the biggest draw for Texas is NIL with Evan, because Evan has such a presence and platform on social media that he would be considered an influencer. He would be paid just to post things because of his mass following. I'm talking millions in TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. If there's a social media platform, Evan Stewart has mastered it. And I think the sell is not only going to be come in and play in a Devontae Smith's type system. You can play in his role like Smith did at Alabama or like Waddell did at Alabama. Come and play in that style. You got a quarterback in Hudson Card who's got one of the most natural arms in the country, who is going to be a tremendous quarterback at the University of Texas. And you've got NIL that's passing on July 1st, where you can start to profit off your name, image, and likeness. For Evan Stewart, that's going to be the sell. That's the presentation right there. You want to get this guy, you're going to have to show him how he can maximize his revenue at the next level and beyond. And so getting Evan back on campus is big. I think he's always been a Texas fan, obviously, when he committed. But again, I think he did it a little too soon. And, normally you don't see kids flip back to the school they decommitted from. That's very rare. But Evan Stewart is very rare. So don't put it past him.
Then we have a big body receiver in CJ Williams out of Modern Day, and he's coming for a visit as well. So what's the word there?
Yeah, a West Coast kid. Sark was in on him pretty early. Modern Day high school, big program. He's the next up coming out of there. It's hard to get a read on CJ right now. I know that USC had some interest and then it waned. I know Notre Dame has interest. I'm not real sure where that's at right now. I know Texas has interest, but I feel like there are other receivers that are higher priorities. I think CJ would be a good take in any class. Don't get me wrong, but in-state right now is ridiculous for Texas Pound with all the talent. And I don't necessarily think going out west to get CJ is the right move today. I think there's too many other better options that are a lot closer, but that's what Sark and these guys get paid to do and make decisions. CJ can play football. He's a big kid. He excels on the track. He loves hurdles. He's one I do worry about a little bit from a speed standpoint. I worry if he can get consistent separation. In the Big 12, that's a hit. That's an imperative trait. If you don't have it, you don't succeed. And so I don't know how well he fits this system. But again, I'm gonna trust Coach Sarkisian and his staff on their evaluation. I think there's better options, but they still like CJ. I don't see him in this class today, but let's revisit that after this weekend. Maybe that changes some minds.
And last of the receivers, we have Louisiana's Chaz Preston stopping by, and he's going to be a tough get, right?
Man, Chaz Preston and his family, they're wonderful. I got to meet them at the Under Armour camp at Arlington Martin. I think it was back in March. Just a really happy, positive group. Chaz made sure to introduce himself to me, said he's going to be visiting Texas this summer. And I was pleasantly surprised. I had basically written him off to LSU simply because no school keeps talent in state better than Louisiana State. None. They set the standard. So I just assumed he'd stay in state. And I still feel like LSU is probably going to be the school at the end of the day, but you never know. That's what these visits are for. You get these kids' attention, you say the right things, you sell the right sell, and all of a sudden you're in this recruitment. And so Chaz Preston, it's good to get him there. It's going to look good from a power ranking standpoint because it's going to be some one of those high 4-star talented guys on campus. But at the end of the day, they're going to have to trump what LSU and what some of these other schools are bringing to the table. But hey, give Sark credit.
And we mostly have offensive prospects coming this weekend, but we do have 3 commits and 2 major targets at corner coming by as well. First, I know Chris Ross will be in town after being here earlier this week. Is Chris still looking solid as he becomes more popular?
I believe so. I think a couple weeks ago, TCU was somewhat of a threat. And I believe that's just from the connection of North Shore. They brought in Zach Evans last year. They took Shadrack Banks from the portal. And so I think that North Shore connection was a little overhyped. And I think TCU was trying to push that. But I think coming back last weekend solidified everything with Texas. Bo Davis has done a tremendous job. Coach PK has done a tremendous job. The thing I noticed the most about Christopher Ross was that I swear he drove the golf cart on Saturday more than coaches and staffers. I saw that guy circling the stadium many times. It looked like he had a different girl with him each time. It's just an example of a kid being a kid, having fun in a time that's appropriate. It was awesome. Chris is a good-looking kid. He's got a great handshake, and I think his commitment to Texas is solid. I think that's if the floor for your D-line class is going to be Christopher Ross, that's a damn good floor.
Excellent floor. And then we have another commit in Travell Johnson out of Arlington Martin as well. What's he looking forward to?
Travell is looking forward to seeing Texas, seeing his future home, bumping into Maurice, telling Javion Toviano how much fun he had. But mainly, Travell is ready to shut his recruitment down. This is a guy that doesn't want to take visits. He doesn't want to do interviews. I love talking to him because it's like talking to an adult. He's very smart. He's very well read. He understands doing the interviews and he enjoys it. And he also understands if he's not going to another school, there's no reason to do these interviews anymore. He's quick. And I like that. I like that about him top to bottom, on and off the field. Travell is a get. He's a guy that can probably be an inside guy. He's probably going to be a Mike more than likely. He can put on 20 or 30 pounds and shoot gaps, don't get caught in the wash, and maybe even get a little bit of pressure on the quarterback while also maybe picking up a little coverage in space. Travell adds a little bit of all of that. And so he's just coming home to make sure this is exactly where he wants to be. And the fact that he's cut off interviews and attention from other schools tells me calculator, Orange House.
Our final current commit visiting is B.J. Allen, talented defensive back. What's the word on his visit as Alabama steps up their recruiting?
B.J. Allen was fantastic. He was formerly a commit of LSU, decommitted. And the funny story is that Evan Stewart, while he was committed to Texas, talked him into committing to Texas. And so Evan felt like he did his job. That was part of his recruitment job. BJ loves being committed to Texas. I think the big thing with Alabama was his little brother, Jaden. He's a 2024 corner, and Jaden is going to be a dude just like BJ. And when Alabama BJ and they brought them both up for a visit, there was a little trepidation that Saban might try to flip him, might try to offer the brother so that they can sure to be in that recruitment. But after, Allen even said it, I want to go see Alabama. I wanted to see what it's about. And now I've seen it. And then I want to come back home. And he came back home. And the fact that his brother picked up an offer, I believe he was the first 2024 in-state offer by the staff, was completely noteworthy because Jaden is going to be a dude. The Allen boys are good. Those guys can play in the Texas secondary for the next few years. And have an impact, Kenny Vaccaro, Kevin Vaccaro, like you love getting a pair of brothers on campus. I think BJ will be the first one when he signs. They're in good already with Jaden. And so getting the Allen boys back on campus was big. Getting BJ solidified. He loved hanging out with Coach Gidding, and he loved getting to know some of those guys on a more personal level. And the fact that his family was with him and Jaden, just a good story for the Allen family.
Then we have the two major targets at corner in Terrence Brooks and Denver Harris. Alabama has these players on the top of their boards as well. What's the update on Terrence Brooks as he visits this weekend?
Terrence Brooks, according to sources, has two teams. He's down to two teams. It's Alabama or Texas. His dad, Chet Brooks, former all-conference safety for San Francisco, for Texas A&M, played in the NFL for the San Francisco 49ers. My boy Eric knows that real well. Terrence, to me, everyone wants to anoint Denver Harris as the top corner in the state, and there's a good argument for that. I think Terrence Brooks is. I think Brooks comes with more maturity, more physicality, more technique. Obviously, coming from where he came from, he's got those genes. He's got that floor plan of talented. It's going to come down to Texas and Alabama, and I think we'll know something from Brooks probably in the next month or so. I don't think he's going to stretch it too far. At the end of the day, he did a great job while he was at John Paul in Plano. I believe he's transferred to Little Elm. I believe that's where he's going to be playing. I could be wrong when this airs, but I believe that's where he's going to be playing. At the end of the day, though, great kid, great family, great talent. It's going to be tough to beat Saban. It's going to be tough to beat Alabama. They have prioritized him. I'm told Saban talks to him up to 2 hours a week at certain times. They want him. And so Texas has a real battle on their hands. And right now, I think Alabama is probably in the driver's seat there. So this visit really, really needs to resonate with him and his family.
And then we have Denver Harris, who fans are super excited for, and he is scheduled to visit this weekend. So what's the update there? His recruitment has been a little hard to follow.
Harder to follow is a polite way of putting it. Denver's a good kid. He's had some fun with the process. He's growing through the process. He's learning as he goes. If you were to create a player on NCAA college football or Madden, and you created a corner, he'd look like Denver Harris. Length, speed, ability, flipped. I mean, the guy's got good feet. He's your prototypical guy. He looks like he's 6'2". I mean, he's the guy the NFL covets these days at the corner spot, manning the island. Denver's another one that I'm telling you, I think it's an Alabama-Texas battle. I know he's got a Georgia visit penciled in the middle of next week. Our Jerry Hamilton and Eric Nalin reported that this morning. I know Texas A&M was involved there for a spell, but I believe he's made it pretty clear he doesn't want to attend Texas A&M. And so I think this is going to come down to Alabama and Texas. If I'm a Texas fan, a split of Brooks or Denver Harris is the ideal situation, because I don't think it's reasonable you're getting both. I think there's a chance Alabama could get both, but I don't feel like Texas could. But I do think they can split it. And I do think they have a real good connection with Denver Harris. It's really going to be fighting off the big dogs to keep him, to get that guy. North Shore puts out talented dudes every single year. They just reload year after year. Denver is one of those guys. His recruitment, there's going to be that. If you like roller coasters, this is the one to follow, because there's going to be a lot of highs and a lot of lows. I feel like with this by the time it's done. And, with North Shore, sometimes those recruitments, that's kind of what you get. For every Christopher Ross, you have to deal with a Shadrach Banks or Denver Harris. For every Demetrius Davis, you have to handle, one of the other guys as well. And so Denver coming in is huge. Texas really has to shine for this guy, and I think they can. He came for the spring game, thoroughly enjoyed it. Got a lot of preferential treatment. I see the same thing happening this weekend. So let's see what Coach PK. Let's see what Bo Davis, who is real good in the Houston area, especially in North Shore. Let's see what Sark can do to shape this recruitment, because we're going to know a lot more about where Denver might go by Sunday.
And that's a wrap for the visits coming this weekend, but we also had visitors this past weekend with some big names in there as well. So, how did number one linebacker Harold Perkins enjoy his visit? I saw he got gummy worms and was very excited.
Getting Harold Perkins on campus was the second biggest story of the weekend. Obviously, Arch Manning took the headlines, and for good reason. He's going to be one of the highest profile recruits in the history of the sport. Harold Perkins is one of the best linebackers I've ever seen. I compared him to Malik Jefferson, but a mean pitbull version. Perkins is just nasty. He is a guy that every college football program, every national championship you watch, there's a guy like Harold Perkins on both sides of the field. He's just that kind of a guy. He's so talented, especially on the defensive end. He's trying to create his own position. And Texas is open to this. It's almost a hybrid safety nickel linebacker. He wants it to kind of be strictly, PK wants to arrange it to where it kind of focuses on him and his strengths. And if you're going to try to sell Harold Perkins, if you're going to try to get his commitment, that's the best way to do it. Bringing him in this weekend was huge. He was scheduled to see USC, and that got canceled. Now, I don't see that getting rescheduled. He made sure he hit it to Texas. It was going to be an unofficial at first, and then he decided to make the weekend of it. Texas did a great job with Perkins. How good, that remains to be seen. I'm a little cautious with my optimism there because I have heard positives. I heard quite a bit. And I gave Harold the social media award for the weekend because the guy was like a director. He documented almost every step of the way on his different platforms. And apparently he's a big fan of gummy bears. At the end of the day, Perkins is a guy that you recruit through the whistle, regardless of when he commits, where he commits. It doesn't matter. You recruit this guy through the whistle. To give you an idea how important Perkins is to the Texas staff, his two primary contacts are Steve Sarkisian and Jeff Banks, two guys that will have nothing to do with coaching his position. That's because those are the two big dogs, and Perkins is one of those guys. Like I said, getting him on campus was huge. He's got an SEC feel to him, whether it be Texas A&M, whether it be Alabama, whether it be LSU. He kind of, to me, resembles an LSU linebacker. Like, I feel like that's what they look like each year, more or less. I've heard, though, in his family that they may not be as fond of LSU. A&M one, because, you know, they fit kind of his resume of what he wants, his ability. But I've also been told that, you know, the family may not be a fan of College Station. It's kind of boring. There's not a whole lot to do. There's not a lot of opportunities there. And then I also know the NIL sell with Perkins was probably a home run, because now he realizes what a lot of these other prospects do, that Texas is going to come at NIL a little bit different and more aggressive than most other schools, because they just have so much more to offer. And Perkins is realizing that. Did it move the needle with him and his recruitment? I think a little bit. I'll know more after the season. I'll know more or less. Not so much after this summer, because I know he's going to want to try to save a couple of officials to see games. And even if he's used his officials, you're going to see this guy pop up at games at A&M, at Texas, at Alabama, at LSU, places like that. This recruitment is really just kind of getting started. I mean, I know it's been in the works for a couple of years, but we're just now starting to get into the minutia of the Harold Perkins pursuit. And Texas did real good getting him on campus this weekend. They moved the needle a little bit, but it's going to take some more effort before I get any more optimistic.
Good stuff. And we have Sebastian Cheeks out of Illinois as well. And PK will like him as an outside linebacker. Did he enjoy his time in Texas and in Austin?
Sebastian Cheeks is one of those rare guys that I think once a cycle, the Texas staff finds an out-of-state prospect that, for whatever reason, grew up liking Texas, even though he never lived here. It happens from time to time. It reminds me of the Jordan Hicks recruitment when he was from Ohio and he was supposed to go Ohio State, but he had some connections and wound up going to Texas. I get the same kind of sense there with Sebastian. This one's going to come down to Texas, Notre Dame, and Michigan. I'm told Notre Dame has backed off somewhat. They still like him. They still see him as a good fit, but they've got other guys, preferably like a junior, Tui Halamaka, that could fit a little bit better. Michigan is definitely pushing. I believe they were even messaging him during his official at Texas this weekend. So they're going to be a factor, but I like where Texas sits with this guy right now. I wouldn't predict that he's going to sign with Texas, but I think they're in as good a position as anybody. It might be down to them in Michigan. He's supposed to see Michigan this coming up week. He had mentioned that. And so that'll tell us a little bit more from there. But we're talking about an athletic outside linebacker that has the frame to add muscle and play inside as well. He tracks and smacks. You know, he's a Chicago area kid that has no problem leaving the state, has no problem going. I think that's what he prefers. As a matter of fact, he's very cultured. He's a guy that likes to travel. And Austin really showed him some stuff. It showed him that it's a whole other world down here when it comes to college football. So I think this weekend, all it did was basically solidify Texas' spot with Cheeks, that when it comes down to his decision, Texas is going to be in the conversation. And I dare to admit, Texas might be the close leader right now.
Another outside linebacker is Anthony Jones out of Nevada, and he visited earlier this week and committed to Texas. It was a nice surprise. I know PK wanted him at Washington.
This is a guy that Eric Nolling started watching a while back and absolutely loved. PK as well. You know, he flirted with the idea of playing tight end, because if you talk to kids, more or less, they want to score touchdowns, and you do that on the opposite side of the ball. He took an official visit to Miami weekend before last, who loved him at tight end. So there was some allure to that. But once he got to Texas, I think PK convinced him, look, I loved you at edge, what you were doing for what you were going to do for us at Washington. I can see you doing the exact same thing for us at Texas. And it sold him. I was told from a source that this was actually a commitment that's already happened, that he was actually setting on this for a few months when he made his decision. It makes total sense, because the way that Eric and our staff has documented his recruitment, it's looked like Texas for the last few months. So it was good on Inside Texas' part. It was good on Jones' part. It was a good ending to an incredible Saturday. Not knocking the walk-off game win one in the NCAA Super Regionals by the baseball team, but from sunrise to sunset, Saturday really kicked ass. And Anthony Jones announcing his commitment, to me, was the cherry on the cake.
And then we had Xavier Bryce turn some heads at the camp that we heard about. So what was the story there?
Xavier's been quietly on the come up. He was committed to Kansas up until Monday for a wide receiver position. He's that good of an athlete. Texas watched him work out at corner and defensive back, and he absolutely flourished. There was one time where Jonte Cook had him beat, I believe, on a seam, and 2 steps up, he turns around and he's got the wingspan of a condor. Guy knocks the ball down. I mean, it's outstanding what this guy can do raw wise. And they saw enough to where they extended him an offer. They like him at corner. He's about 6'1", 178, 180 pounds, in that range. He doesn't say much. The recruiting process is very new to him, and you can tell by speaking with him in his interviews that he's a little timid. It's a little new to him, but I guarantee you Texas made an impression on him. His teammate Jamel Johnson is also a DB who holds a Texas offer, who was also with him on that trip, and the amount of love they showed both of those guys, I think, really resonated. Bryce left about as happy as a kid probably could be. I bet he didn't expect to get a Texas offer, but now he does. And now he's squarely in the mix for one of those defensive back spots. I don't know where he is in his timeline or his decision. I know Texas has a few other guys that I would consider higher priorities, but he did enough to impress Blake Gideon and Terry Joseph. And to me, that says enough.
Finally, we have the 2 offensive line recruits. Jacob Sexton is out of Oklahoma, and a lot of people just assumed he was an OU lock. So how was his visit?
That was kind of the given. We've known Jacob for almost 2 years, and knowing he's from Edmond, Oklahoma, and knowing that Oklahoma wanted him, and knowing he's 6'6", 295 pounds, and knowing he's a high 4-star, we just almost wrote him off to Oklahoma. But they do a real good job keeping kids in state, and they do a really good job recruiting offensive linemen, and they do a damn good job developing him. So it made sense. But this is recruiting, and you have to learn each little tidbit about these guys. And the more you learn, the more we figured out that Oklahoma may not be the spot for him moving forward. I know he likes OU. I don't believe he has a visit scheduled to Oklahoma yet. I think that's in the works. A source close to the Sooner staff told me they may be backing off of him a little bit. I'm unsure of that as well. I don't see why you would. He is in take all day, 24 hours a day. He outstanding upside. He can play right tackle. He can play left tackle. He's got the frame. He's got the mold. And he's got the disposition. You want your offensive lineman to be a little nasty, and he's got some of that nasty in him. His father was a big Texas fan, grew up as a Longhorn fan, so I think there's a little bit of influence there as well. Obviously, he's going to let Jacob make his own decision, but Texas did really good with this kid over the weekend. He's going to see Oklahoma State next weekend. He visited Alabama the week before. I can see a decision coming out this summer, preferably before his senior year starts. He probably wants to get a spot. Is Texas in the mix? Yes. Much more now than they were 2 or 3 months ago. Kyle Flood has made up a lot of ground, and they've done a good job. And so it's really going to be fighting off the Sooners and the Cowboys, I feel like, to get his services.
Cole Hudson out of Frisco visited as well. And did Cole enjoy his time?
Cole Hudson and his family handled the recruiting process the correct way. They took it when COVID shut everything down. They took it in their own hands, and they went and they started making trips, hitting airplanes, seeing schools. Anybody that had an offer or an interest, the Hudsons were going to see it. I've gotten to know Cole and his father Scott pretty well over the last year and a half. They're so easy to talk to. They're so relatable. There's so many positive things. His dad played baseball professionally and also played at Arizona State. So he's kind of familiar with the college recruiting process. I don't think they expected Cole to be as big as he is and to have the notoriety, but here we are. He wants to play center. He's one of the smartest guys on the team. He's always going to be one of the smartest guys on the field. I think he can play guard. I think he can play tackle, but I do think interior is probably his better strong suit. This guy's seen Texas 3 times in the last 3 months. He has made sure he has got his fix of the University of Texas. If they're going to be in it till the end. Now, I know he still has Texas A&M to see, and I know he still has OU to see. And knowing how this family is pragmatic, they're going to go through the process. They're going to go see these schools, talk to these coaches. They're going to be thorough before they make this decision. This is another guy I think makes a decision around July when these visits are over. I think Texas is in a great spot for Cole right now. I do feel like they're going to split one of Cole or Connor Robertson, and I do think they're going to have the choice. And at the end of the day, that choice might be Cole when it's all said and done. It remains to be seen. We'll see how his process plays out over the next few weeks after he sees Norman, after he sees College Station. But if I had to choose between Connor or Cole, both of those guys are takes. You can't go wrong with either one of them. But I have a feeling in my gut Cole is slightly stronger to Texas than Connor.
Awesome, brother. We're all caught up on the official visits coming up and covered the ones that happened last week. Thanks for breaking it down for us, man. Justin, will you let the viewers know where to find your work one last time?
Absolutely. Big weekend coming in Austin this weekend. Be sure and check it out at InsideTexas.com. Big thanks to my main man, Texas Homer, for another production, another wonderful video. Hope that you enjoyed it. Be sure and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.
That was a great time. Shout out Inside Texas and Justin Wells. Go check them out. And watch more of my videos here and consider joining as a channel member. As always, hook 'em.